My stepfamily tried to erase my grandfather's legacy, but they didn't count on me fighting back with everything he taught me. This isn't just about money, it's about loyalty, betrayal, and justice. Subscribe now if you believe family is earned, not just blood. When my grandfather passed away 6 years ago, he left behind 3 things: a prized motorcycle collection he'd poured his soul into, a quiet mountain cabin nestled in the Rockies, and a granddaughter who still misses him every single day. That's me, Ellie, and this is the story of how my own family tried to erase his legacy and steal what was meant for me. Grandpa Ray was a legend in our small Colorado town. He could rebuild an engine blindfolded, and his garage was filled with vintage bikes from every decade. It was his sanctuary, and it became mine too. I was only 10 when I started helping him out there, handing him wrenches, asking questions, soaking in every bit of knowledge like it was gospel. "Keep your eyes open, kiddo," he'd always say. "One day, all of this will be yours." And I believed him. He taught me how to respect the craft, how to listen to the hum of an engine, and how to fix things that others would have thrown away. While other girls were at the mall or glued to TikTok, I was elbow deep in grease, helping him restore a '59 Harley Panhead. Mom never got it. She thought motorcycles were dangerous, messy, a waste of time. After Grandpa died of a stroke at 66, she didn't even wait a full year before marrying Rick, her yoga instructor of all people, who was 10 years younger than her. I was 15 when Rick moved in, bringing along his 12-year-old daughter, Casey. Everything changed overnight. Rick and Mom started redoing the house, ripping out Grandpa's old wood paneling, replacing his leather chairs with sleek modern junk, trying to erase every trace of him. The only 2 places they left untouched were the garage, smells like oil and old metal, Mom would complain, and the mountain cabin. I overheard our family lawyer, Miss Delgado, explaining that Grandpa had locked both assets in a trust. "Nothing gets sold or touched until Ellie turns 24, she told my mom firmly after the funeral. Raymond was very specific. I felt a wave of relief. Grandpa had planned ahead. He'd protected the things we loved. I should have checked the paperwork myself. I should have known better than to blindly trust everything would be handled fairly. But I was 15 and heartbroken. I found comfort in the garage, my hands stained with oil, my mind full of memories. It was my way of staying close to him. Meanwhile, Mom and Rick were busy remaking Casey into some polished, Instagram-ready version of a daughter they always wanted. And that's when things started to unravel. Perfect daughter, designer boots, private ski lessons, etiquette workshops in Aspen. Nothing was too expensive when it came to Casey's development. "Ellie, sweetheart," Mom would sigh, eyeing my oil-stained flannel and ripped jeans. "Wouldn't you rather come with Casey to her refinement seminar this weekend? It's far more appropriate than spending all your time in that dirty garage." But I stayed true to what Grandpa taught me. I kept his bikes running, kept his tools neatly lined up on the pegboard, just the way he liked them. The other kids at school thought I was odd, a girl spending hours tuning carburetors and polishing chrome. I didn't care. Every time I got one of Grandpa's old Harleys roaring back to life, I felt like he was still there, giving me a proud nod from across the garage. After high school, I enrolled in a mechanical engineering program at Colorado State. I paid my own way, working evenings and weekends at a local motorcycle shop. Mom and Rick never offered to help with tuition. Their money was going toward Casey's future. But I didn't need their help. I had grit, passion, and Mike, the shop's owner, who quickly saw my potential. "You've got hands like your grandpa," he'd say, watching me tear down an engine with surgical focus. "You don't just fix things, you understand them." I made trips home whenever I could to check on Grandpa's bikes and the cabin. But each time, something felt off. Tools missing from the garage, an old engine block I swore had been there, gone. When I confronted Mom, she brushed it off. "Oh, we just needed to make some space, Ellie. You can't expect everything to stay frozen in time, forever." I should have pushed harder, but between school, work, and life, I let it go. Deep down, I couldn't imagine my own mother going against Grandpa's wishes. Then came the call that changed everything. I was in my final semester when Mom rang, voice practically fizzing with excitement. "Ellie, you'll never guess. Casey's engaged to Jeremy Lancaster. Yes, those Lancasters, from Lancaster Resorts. I offered the usual congratulations, calculating how long I had to stay on the phone. But Mom wasn't done. We're planning the most incredible wedding, she gushed, at the Summit Club, full orchestra, over 400 guests. Of course, it'll be quite the expense, but Rick and I found a way to handle it. Something in her voice made my stomach twist into knots. Mom, what do you mean you figured it out? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She paused and I could practically see her rehearsing that sweet but manipulative smile she always used when she wanted something. Well, she began, we've had some interest in the mountain cabin, and since it's just sitting there unused most of the time, you can't sell the cabin, I cut in, heart pounding. Grandpa's will. Oh, that old thing, she said, waving it off like it was a grocery list. Rick had his lawyer look it over. Apparently there was an issue with how it was filed, something about incorrect witnesses or missing notarization. The point is, as Raymond's widow, I have full authority to sell. My breath caught in my throat. And really, Ellie, it's for the best. Casey needs this wedding to cement her place in the Lancaster family. Your grandfather would have understood. The world seemed to shift beneath me. No, he wouldn't. That cabin has been in his family for generations. He wanted me to have it. Don't be selfish, Ellie, she snapped. Casey is your sister now, and this is her moment. Besides, she added, her voice taking on that snide, familiar edge, what would you do with a mountain cabin anyway? You're always elbow deep in engine grease, messing around with those old motorcycles. This way, at least the property will go towards something useful. I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I could still hear Grandpa's voice. Someday, all this will be yours. I lunged for my laptop and started digging through old emails. Anything from Ms. Delgado, our family lawyer. Any proof, any clause, any document. That's when I noticed something else. The motorcycles. The collection Grandpa had built his whole life. Half of them were missing from the insurance reports. I called Mike at the shop, doing my best to keep my voice even. Mike, I need a favor. When you last saw the garage, how many bikes were there? A long pause. Ellie, I was wondering when you'd ask. They've been selling them off, one at a time. My stomach dropped. I tried to stop it. Those bikes were meant for you. But Rick said they had paperwork. Legal stuff. I ended the call in stunned silence. Then I opened my email and wrote 2 messages, one to my academic advisor, requesting an emergency extension, and the other to Miss Delgado. The second message I sent was to a lawyer I'd met through the bike shop, a soft-spoken, sharp-minded, classic motorcycle enthusiast named Marcus Bennett. He also happened to specialize in estate law. Need your help. Family inheritance being sold without permission. How soon can we meet? I typed. His reply came back in minutes. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Bring anything you've got. That night, sleep didn't come easy. I kept replaying Grandpa in the garage, his hands calloused, grease under his nails, teaching me how to feel the engine's rhythm, how to hear what others missed. Keep your eyes open, kiddo. One day this will all be yours. I'm watching now, Grandpa, I thought, as exhaustion finally pulled me under, and I'm not letting them steal what you left me. Marcus Bennett's law office looked like something out of a movie. Leather armchairs, rich wood paneling, shelves of legal volumes that practically whispered power. But what caught my eye were the framed photos along the walls. Vintage bikes, dozens of them. One in particular stopped me cold. A stunning 1965 Triumph Bonneville, just like the one Grandpa and I had started rebuilding the summer before he passed. That one's mine, Marcus said, catching my gaze. Took me nearly 4 years to get it road ready. I nodded slowly. My grandpa and I were working on one just like it. Mike must have told him about me, because his demeanor shifted instantly. The easy charm vanished, replaced with a quiet intensity. Tell me everything, he said. Start from the top. For the next hour, I laid it all out. Grandpa's will, the clause about waiting until I turned 24, the missing motorcycles, and now the attempt to sell the cabin to fund Casey's society wedding. Do you have a copy of the will? He asked. I shook my head. Mom said there were issues. Something about bad witnesses or missing paperwork? Marcus's brow furrowed. That's suspicious. Who was your grandfather's attorney? Ms. Delgado's old partner, George Patterson. But when I called yesterday, they said he retired and moved to Florida. Marcus leaned forward. George Patterson? I know George. He's a perfectionist when it comes to estate filings. If he wrote the will, it's airtight. Can you find out? I can do better, he said, pulling out his phone. George plays poker with me and Mike twice a month. Let me give him a call. 20 minutes later, Marcus turned to me, jaw tight. Ellie. George never moved to Florida. He's working part-time at his son's firm across town. Someone's been lying to you. And he definitely never told your mother there were issues with the will, Marcus said, eyes narrowed. In fact, he's been trying to reach you for months. Your mom told his office you were studying abroad and couldn't be contacted. My hands curled into fists. They lied about everything. It gets worse, Marcus continued grimly. George says your grandfather didn't just leave a will, he set up a trust. The bikes, the cabin, even the tools in the garage, everything was placed in that trust, with you as the sole beneficiary. My heart thudded. They had no legal right to sell any of it? None, Marcus confirmed. They've been committing fraud every time they sold a motorcycle or auctioned off garage equipment. My voice trembled. So, all those missing bikes, the tools. Marcus was already tapping away on his computer. Selling trust property without the trustee's authorization. That's breach of fiduciary duty. Using the money for personal benefit, fraud, and lying about the trust's validity? He looked up. That's a whole new level of illegal. What can we do? I asked, barely breathing. First, we gather documentation. Every sale. When it happened, who bought it, how much it sold for. We trace the money. Bank records, transfers. Once we have the full picture, we file for an emergency injunction to stop the cabin sale and launch a recovery suit. I swallowed hard, thinking of Grandpa's garage, the empty spots where bikes once stood. Can we get them back? Some, maybe, he said honestly, if we can track down the buyers and prove they purchased illegally. The others will go after financial restitution, and if the court agrees, punitive damages too. He met my eyes, serious now. Ellie, this won't be easy. They're your family. Are you sure you want to go through with this? I didn't even hesitate. They stopped being family the moment they stole Grandpa's legacy. The following weeks were a blur. Marcus and his team got to work, fast. They traced the sale of 11 of Grandpa's bikes, worth over $800,000. They uncovered garage equipment quietly sold off at estate auctions. Worst of all, the paper trail. Money funneled straight into Mom and Rick's personal accounts. Payments to wedding vendors, Casey's luxury apartment, her brand new Tesla. Meanwhile, I took a leave from my final semester, promising my professors I'd make up the work in summer. This was bigger. This was about Grandpa. This was about justice. And as for the mysterious lawyer who found problems with the trust? Yeah, he didn't exist. They'd gone further than I ever imagined, forging documents, even creating a fake law firm's letterhead, all just to convince me they had the right to sell off everything Grandpa left for me. Ellie, sweetheart. Mom cornered me in the kitchen the next morning, wearing a stiff smile that didn't reach her eyes. About the cabin, I know you're upset, but you have to try to understand. Casey's wedding is important. This is her chance to build the perfect life. Like mine didn't matter. I kept my tone flat, my phone recording quietly in my hoodie pocket. And I guess Grandpa's wishes don't matter either? Your grandfather would have wanted to help his step-granddaughter, she insisted. He was generous like that. I pulled out my phone, not to stop the recording, but to show her a photo I'd taken during my investigation. Oh, is that why you sold his 1969 Triumph Bonneville to pay for a weekend at Serenity Springs? Her face lost all color. Where did I know everything, Mom. Every bike. Every lie. Every deposit into your account. She grabbed my arm, tight. We didn't steal anything. We're your family. We have every right. You might want to let go of me, I said, calm but firm. And you might want to get a real lawyer, for once. That night I heard voices through the wall, arguing. Casey's voice rang sharp. What do you mean the wedding might be canceled? The Lancasters will ruin us. Jeremy's mom already ordered custom ice sculptures. We'll fix it, Rick said, his voice strained. Ellie's just being dramatic. She'll fold. I smiled grimly, thinking of the files sitting in Marcus's office. They had no idea how much trouble they were in. The next morning, I headed to Grandpa's garage, just needing to breathe, to feel something real. In the back corner, under a dusty tarp, I found her, our project, a 1957 Chevy Bel Air, the one we'd rebuilt together during high school. She was a little worse for wear. Engine scattered across the bench, paint dull, but untouched. I rested my hand on the hood, hearing Grandpa's voice again. Patience, kiddo. Sometimes you gotta take things apart before you can build them right. He meant engines. But now? That lesson was everything. I was dismantling the lies, piece by piece. And soon, I'd rebuild the truth. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bringing George Patterson. Time to drop the hammer. I texted back a simple, I'll be there, then rolled up my sleeves and got to work on the Bel Air's engine. Tomorrow would bring chaos. But today, I could lose myself in the rhythm of socket wrenches and grease-stained gloves, honoring Grandpa the only way I knew how. The smooth clink of metal, the scent of old oil, the quiet focus. It grounded me. As I worked, I heard Mom and Rick leave for another wedding planning session up at the Summit Ridge Country Club. They were still deep in their fantasy floral arrangements, custom menus, orchestras, clueless that while they played party planners, Marcus's team was out serving subpoenas. Every auction house, every classic bike dealer, every shady buyer who'd touched Grandpa's legacy, now on record. The truth was coming, whether they liked it or not. The next morning I arrived at Marcus's office early. I watched through the front window as Rick's sleek BMW pulled up. All three of them stepped out like they were walking into a boardroom. Mom wore her Let's Keep This Civil power suit, a tailored navy ensemble with pearl buttons. Rick was in his tennis club blazer, trying too hard to project authority. And Casey? She was clinging to a giant wedding planner binder like it was a life raft. Marcus greeted them in the lobby while I waited inside the conference room with George Patterson. He didn't look anything like the retired, forgetful old man Mom had described. His handshake was firm, his eyes sharp behind wire-framed glasses. Your grandfather was a good man, he said quietly. He trusted your mother to do the right thing. He paused, then added, I'm sorry she didn't. Before I could answer, the door opened. Mom's confident smile froze the second she saw George. Rick paled. Casey just blinked in confusion. Mr. Patterson, Mom's voice pitched higher than usual. What are you doing here? Marcus shut the door calmly. Good question, Mrs. Whitaker. Especially since you told your daughter he was retired and living in Florida. There must be some misunderstanding, Rick jumped in, but Marcus cut him off. Please, have a seat. They sat. I saw Mom's hands trembling as she adjusted her skirt. She knew. The facade was cracking. Marcus opened a thick folder. Let's begin with the trust Mr. Raymond Whitaker established for Ellie, the one you claimed didn't exist. We never, Mom began, but George cut in. I have the original trust documents here. Properly witnessed, properly filed. Your husband was very clear. Every motorcycle, the mountain cabin, all tools were to be held in trust for Ellie until she turned 24. Marcus slid copies of the trust documents across the table. I watched as Mom and Rick's faces drained of color with each page. Furthermore, Marcus said, calm and precise, we've documented multiple unauthorized sales of trust assets. He laid out photos one by one. The 1969 Triumph Bonneville, sold to fund a spa weekend. The 1965 Norton, gone to pay for Casey's new apartment. The 1970 Indian Scout, used to cover country club dues. Casey blinked. Mom? Rick? What is all this? And most recently, Marcus continued, the attempted sale of the mountain cabin, all to fund a lavish wedding, paid for with stolen money. Stolen, Casey gasped. I looked at her, yes. They'd been selling off my inheritance, Grandpa's bikes, his tools, the cabin. None of it belonged to them. Rick slammed his hand on the table. We had every right. The will was invalid. Was it? Marcus raised an eyebrow, sliding forward more documents. Fake letters, forged signatures, a fabricated law firm, document forgery, wire fraud, trust conversion. Mom's voice cracked. We needed the money. Rick's business. Casey deserved a beautiful wedding. With stolen funds? I asked coldly. That's what she deserved? Casey broke down. The Lancasters will cancel everything. Jeremy's mom already paid for the ice sculptures. I sighed. Maybe you should have asked where the money was coming from. Marcus's voice cut through the room. Here's what happens next. All sales stop immediately. The cabin is off the market. You'll provide a full accounting of every item sold, every cent spent. Mr. Patterson and I will be reviewing everything. You can't do this, Mom whispered. We're family. I stood. Was it family when you lied about Mr. Patterson? When you sold Grandpa's bike from my senior year? When you tried to erase him from everything? She reached for my hand. Ellie, please. If you'd just asked, I might have helped with Casey's wedding, but you didn't. You took. Marcus laid down the final papers, court orders, repayment demands. You have 24 hours to sign and comply, he said. After that, we go to the police. The police, Mom gasped. You sent yourselves there, I said quietly, every time you chose lies over love. They left broken, Mom crying, Rick silent, Casey devastated. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was tired. Still, Grandpa's legacy was safe, and that mattered most. Mom and Rick had to remortgage their house to begin repaying what they'd stolen. Casey's wedding was canceled, and with it, her engagement. Turns out the Lancasters didn't want their name tied to fraud investigations. Their words, not mine. She moved back in with Mom, her dream of marrying into high society gone. Meanwhile, Mr. Patterson helped me establish full legal oversight of the trust, making sure no one could ever touch it again. When I finally stepped back into Grandpa's garage, now partially refilled with the bikes we recovered, I felt him more than ever. The 1957 Bel Air still sat in the corner, untouched. I ran my hand along the fender, remembering all those hours we spent rebuilding it together. I did it, Grandpa, I whispered. I protected what you built. I just wished it hadn't come at the cost of losing what little family I had left. Then again, maybe they were never really family, because real family doesn't steal from you, or lie, or treat your inheritance like a blank check. A year later, I graduated from CSU's engineering program. The ceremony was small, just me, my professors, and a few close friends from the bike shop. Mom sent a card. I never opened it. The cabin has become my weekend retreat now, a quiet, healing space where I restore bikes, sip coffee on the porch, and remember the man who taught me everything that truly matters. Work hard, do right by people, and protect what you love. Sometimes I sit in the garage late at night, surrounded by engines and memories, and I know I made the right choice. Some things are worth more than money. Legacy, honor, truth. Rick and Mom never understood that. Last week, I finally finished restoring the Bel Air. When I took it for its first spin, the engines sang, just like Grandpa taught me. I felt peace for the first time in a long while. They tried to take everything, but they couldn't take this. The love, the knowledge, the history. There are still legal matters to settle, still money to recover. Mom calls now and then, always when she needs something. I don't answer. Some people say I'm too harsh. Maybe they're right. But forgiveness? That has to be earned. And until then, I'll keep doing what I was born to do. Be my grandfather's granddaughter, the keeper of his legacy, the protector of dreams built, one bolt at a time. Thank you for listening to my story, for standing beside me when it felt like no one else would. I didn't tell this for sympathy. I told it because I know I'm not the only one who's been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect them. If you've ever been lied to, overlooked, or made to feel like your voice didn't matter, I see you. And I hope my story reminds you that even when it feels like you're alone, you're stronger than you think. So please leave a comment below, let me know what you would have done in my shoes, tell me your story, or just say hi. I love to hear from people who understand that legacy isn't about money, it's about love, values, and standing up for what's right, no matter how hard it gets. And if you felt something while watching this, if you believe that truth matters, that family should be earned through actions and not just blood, hit that subscribe button. Share this story with someone who needs a reminder that quiet strength can change everything. My advice: don't ignore red flags, even when they come from people you love. Trust your gut, keep your records, learn your rights, and most of all, don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. Not out of greed, but out of respect for the people who believed in you, even when they're no longer here. I wasn't just protecting motorcycles or a mountain cabin. I was protecting my grandfather's heart, his work, and everything he passed down to me. And in doing that, I found my own strength. So whatever you're facing right now, keep going. Some things are worth the fight. And I promise, you're not alone.